Welcome to the D-Shift podcast, where we provide inspiration, motivation, and education to help you transition from the challenges of divorce to discover the freedom and ability to live life on your own terms. Are you ready? Let's get this shift started. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the D-Shift podcast. And I am really happy to be able to interview a guest that I had before who really provided us with a lot of insight on relationships, communication, and some strategies that people can use if relationships are starting to feel like people just don't have that connection that they used to have. So I want to introduce you to Dr. Lee Baucom. He is the creator of Save the Marriage System and an expert on thriving in life as well as in relationships. Dr. Lee has written multiple books. He has his own podcast, and he gets on these shows and really helps people with practical tips, insights, and education from a therapeutic point of view, but also from a very real world point of view as to how to improve communication. Dr. Baucom has also created the Unpause app, which I want to make sure we have a chance to talk about because we ran out of time last time before getting all the way to that one. So Lee, welcome, and thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thanks for having me back. I'm excited to be here.
I am too, because I thought that your insight was just amazing. And I really appreciate the fact that, yes, you're a therapist and yes, you work with couples, but you also are really practically based in effective strategies for helping couples that maybe are starting to feel that shift or drift or whatever you want to call it that comes from sometimes from long relationships. So before we get into all that though, how did you get started in this field, and why is this your area of focus?
Yeah, so you kind of started that when you talked about the practical, and what I realized, my training, my background was to be trained as a therapist, and I specialized in working with couples particularly, and what I got frustrated with was how ineffective marital therapy was proving to be, just looking at studies. And so I actually got some training in coaching, 3 years of training there after doing, I think, 8 years of training as a therapist. And so I basically decided that my approach to therapy while I was in the office was much more of a coaching approach. That led to the practical part. Like, how do we actually build this out? I have a core belief that one of the problems with therapy is we don't give clarity on the map. Like, how do you get there? And coaching allowed me to do that. So my strategies have always been built around how do you get to a better place, even in the midst of a marriage crisis. It turned out that as I was working with couples to improve their marriage, there were more people who were like, but we're at the end. Like, I am the only one who wants this. And that's what led to the Save the Marriage System, and what led to me to really focus on how can we be practical with this approach.
Yeah, and I appreciate that because it's interesting. I'm working with several therapists, and they're saying, if we have somebody do the coaching side, we can focus on the therapy side. The coach does more of the practical stuff. And it's a nice balance for people who are who have the time to be able to commit to working with two professionals and that sort of thing. And I see more and more therapists who are getting their coaching training and integrating that into their practice. Do you see that kind of across the board in the marriage and family arena, or is it still a little bit coaching isn't our thing?
Yeah, so I mean, there is a division, right? I mean, the coaches and the therapists tend to, I mean, it's like the fights in the street at night.
Yeah.
We're going to wrestle about what this is all about. But there are some of us who see the strength of both.
Right.
So one of the things that I do value about therapy is being able to say there is damage done, right? There are some things that we bring into our current relationship. What I like about coaching is going, but what's possible from here? What is the growth that's possible here? And one of the things that often happened for people in therapy was being stuck in what's already happened. Like, where was the damage done? And so, yeah, I think that there is a strong bridge point. Both sides have their beliefs and strengths. It's sometimes tricky to integrate that, but where it can happen, absolutely.
Right. And I love the way that you said that because that's the way I talk to my clients about it. Therapy is going to help you with dealing with what's happened in the past and how that's reflected in your future, in your current situation. And coaching is really about where you are now and where you want to go in the future. And obviously, having both of those things is helpful for everybody. So I really appreciate that. I want to talk today, and I know we talked about this a little bit before we hopped on the call here. Let's talk about those couples. And I'm going to talk specifically from a woman's point of view here, because
Sure.
most of my clients are women. Although I do get some guys who say almost exactly the same thing, that they've been in a relationship and it's not a bad relationship. It's just not great. Like, and it maybe started out great, but then there was the kids and the jobs and the promotion and the all the things that happen in midlife. And then it was planning for college, and then it was doing this. And there was always so much stuff that they didn't really do much with each other. And now maybe the kids are out of the house, and that sense of, yeah, it's not bad, but it's not, it's nothing to write home about anymore. So that's a lot of my clients, and they're trying to decide, should they try to rekindle that spark and that love, or is it time to just call it quits, part as friends, and go on their way? So what are your thoughts on that?
It is interesting how many times we see this binary options, right? And actually, I'm appreciative of those who see one of those binaries as being, well, we could improve things, because most of the time it's not that. It's a stay and be either miserable or just kind of unfulfilled, right?
Yeah.
That's one, or leave and see if there's something better. And I always believe when we're stuck in a binary, we've got a problem. There's always that third option. So I'm often saying to people, is it possible to actually build it in a way that you want? So let's go back to what causes the okay, but not great. Generally, when I hear the okay, but not great, they are living okay parallel lives. Like, there's not a lot of interaction, but they've got their thing and their spouse has got their thing. And every now and then they might meet in the middle, but not much. And so it's that their life, it has a function to it. And many times part of that is that at that point, they're beyond the fights and the struggles. They kind of given up on that.
Yeah.
And so they're just coexisting. And so then you have kind of the just parallel existence. And so for some people, that is functional enough. I mean, and that's a lot of, I remember having a couple come to me to actually deal with a child issue. They were parents of a teenager, so they had a teen issue. And they basically said, look, just to let you know, we don't want to work on our relationship. We have a business relationship and we're okay with that. And I mean, as we talked, they began to be less okay with that and realizing that there was maybe something there. And they actually now have built a great relationship. But I'm aware that there are a lot of people who are afraid to push one way or the other. And they see the dangers on each side. So part of the rebuilding is to say what really is possible. I mean, what would you want from that? And so that is a beginning question of what are you hoping to have? Not
Yeah. Yeah.
do you want this or this, but what would you want to have? What would be optimal?
And that's a really interesting consideration, or a really interesting point of view that you brought up, that it's like, it's okay right now. It's tolerable. We have some moments of joy, and we have some moments of intimacy, and we have some moments where we're, a really good couple. But for the most part, we're just really good roommates. And what if we try to work on this and we can't improve it, and it worsens the situation? And, I can hear some of my clients already going, yep, that was exactly me. And we went to therapy and it did get a lot worse. And that's where I think your approach is very different.
Yeah, so often people find that therapy didn't help them because it left them stuck in the what's wrong phase and never presented a what's possible phase. Even if it did present it as a, well, we're trying to make things better, there was no clarity about what that would look like.
Right.
When I start talking with people and ask, what would you want out of a relationship? There are some pretty blank looks sometimes. And so then we go back to, what did you want at the beginning? I mean, what did you expect when you were walking into this relationship? Many times they do have some clarity about that, but they basically have given up on what's possible because time passed. And I mean, at that point, many people have already been through disappointments and attempts at change. I don't often see people that this is their first bump in the road, right? They have had bumps and bumps and bumps and promises to change and attempts to maybe reconnect. And they've done the, we'll go on a big getaway, or we'll do marriage therapy, or we'll do a marriage encounter, or something. And all paths kept leading back to, we'll just be cohabitating.
Right. I have a really interesting, I'm sorry, I'm probably interrupting your train of thought there, but I was going to tell you, I have a really interesting, I've had two clients that have come to me in the last little while that have talked about this. Setting up date nights and how that was kind of touted as, well, just have a date night. And they did it. And it was really funny because both of them they were mirror conversations of each other where they said, okay, the first night we got dressed up, we booked we made reservations at a beautiful restaurant. We went to a theater, we went to a movie, we did something we both enjoyed, whatever it might be. We came home. The next week it was like, or the next time the plan, it was like, well, that was a lot. That was really expensive. And I don't know, like, I've got to get up for an early morning meeting. And so, hey, let's just go grab some fast food and come home and watch TV. And then the third time, it just never happened. Even though the best intentions for both of them was to do that, like life got in the way. That's kind of the expression.
And I don't think it was life that got in the way.
I don't think
it was
so
a lack
either.
of connection that got in the way, right?
Yeah.
And so when we're at a disconnected place, that much expectation of connection is a problem. It is frightening for people. I know because I've watched it. And so they will, often come in and say, hey, we've got a plan now. We're going to have date night. I'm like, okay, well, let's talk. Not after the first one, because you're right, they make it through the first one. But when they make it through the first one, what they often don't recognize is they made it as a first surface connection, right? They're talking about the kids and the jobs and avoiding anything of depth. Well, you can only do that so long. That's the problem with the second date. They're going, well, we talk about that time.
Yeah.
I mean, because we've already covered, these things, and what are we going to do now? And so that's where it's expecting too much connection. If you have a very connected couple, date night, first of all, happens organically anyway. They're already going to be looking for those opportunities to connect. And so it's not necessary to make a date night. It just kind of happens. They can insist on doing it, right? They could say, that's so important to us, we're going to do it. But they want to, as opposed to we need to.
We have to.
We need to. Yeah. The we need to is a dangerous proposition. And so they're trying to have more connection than they have connected. And it just overwhelms the system. And so then you start finding reasons not to. It's too expensive. We got stuff the next day. It starts to be less and less of the priority, and we go back to more and more of the prior situation.
Yeah. So what are some steps, or what are some ways, or how do you work with clients to maybe get them to start shifting that thought of this is too much, this is too overwhelming, this is too hard to do? If, let's say, both people have already said, yes, we want to work on this relationship.
Yeah. So one of the things that I ask for people to do is to write down a list of the whys. Why do they want to improve things? Why do they want to work on saving their marriage? Why do they want to improve their marriage? What are the whys? And the reason is because that gives us kind of the impetus, right? That gives us some rocket fuel to do it.
Okay.
If you're just like, yeah, I don't want things to be like they are, that's a comparison to what you don't want instead of what you do want. And the don't wants are almost always bound up in fears. And fears don't motivate people very long. So we're looking for the deeper whys. Like, I believe this is the most important relationship in my life, or should be. I mean, you can say it isn't, but that's what I believe it is.
Right.
And you could say, I want to honor the commitment I made in the relationship. I want to break the history of messy relationships that are in my history. I want to show my kids what it means to work hard on a relationship. Those are much more aspirational. And so we're creating the vacuum, right? The aspirationals are what drag you forward, as opposed to the fears, which are just kind of pushing you along until the fear fades, and then we're stuck. So that's the first thing, is to come up with why you're doing this. What's the real purpose? And a lot of times that takes some energy to actually think through. I ask people to do a list of 10. And I can tell you by experience that 1 through 5, 6, or 7 are going to be the fear-based.
Okay.
And then they start moving into the ones that are more aspirational, the ones that are more feed us and motivate us. And when they have those, they're trying to change momentum. And that's what this is about, right? You've got to have new habits. And making new habits takes energy.
Yeah.
It also feels risky. And so all of those are fighting what our brain likes to do, which is the same thing that kept us alive yesterday.
Right.
And so we fall back into those traps. And I mean, this is true. This is not just about relationship. This is life. Like, your body is going, you know what? The recliner and a bag of chips and the TV kept me alive yesterday. And so
Right.
that part of your brain is going, we'll just hit repeat and that should be fine. And it doesn't. I mean, that realistically doesn't do it, but it that part of our brain that's trained to just make it through another day does latch onto that. And so we have to fight it. We have to put in some energy into that. And then recreate or create some new habits of connecting. And that's where the trick of having those reasons why help. So if I've got my reasons why, and I really buy into that, then I ask the question, what am I going to need to do to fulfill that? Right. Those are the systems that we put into place.
And I really like this idea. It's funny because I talk to my clients about things you're moving away from and things you're moving towards. Kind of the stick and the carrot, right? The carrot is always going to be far more motivating than knowing that there's a stick coming behind you if you don't get things done. And that's I love that. That makes a lot of sense to me, and I'm sure it does to other people listening as well. Now, Lee, I know last time we ran out of time to talk about this, so I want to make sure we get this in right now. You have a really cool option for people, and that is the Unpause app. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And I know this is a little bit of a 180 if you're listening, but not really, because when you listen to what this does, I think you're going to see why it fits in here. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so just let's rewind a little bit to what we talked about last time with that pause button, because that's what we're unpausing, right? So the pause button marriage is what happens early in a marriage when people go, okay, all of that energy we were pouring into the relationship, we now have to kind of go do life. There's only so much energy we have. And back to the binary. It's not okay, so what amount do we need to do to maintain our relationship? It's we'll get back to our relationship after we take care of these things of, raising the kids and career and all those things. And so we take the energy away from the relationship and distribute it to other things, and not leaving any for the relationship, with the belief that we will come back to it. So that's the pause button. We hit the pause on the relationship. We'll be back. So what happens to that over time is it continues this downward loop, this downward disconnection, which is why I created the Save the Marriage system, to help people who had hit that point. But what I realized is there are a lot of people who aren't there yet. They're not at the critical part. They're still at the kind of the chronic piece of the disconnection. And I wanted to have a tool to help that. What I watched around me is lots of other programs that were focused on how to communicate better, how to basically deal with the symptoms of the disconnection, instead of asking the question, how do we solve the disconnection? If we solve the disconnection, the symptoms begin to take care of themselves. We communicate better when we feel connected with somebody. We want to communicate with someone when we feel connected. So the Unpause app is I built as an app, or I had help building it. I'm not the tech guy behind it, but I am the one who put the information in it. And so we decided that an app was really good because an app can remind you to come back, right? So we just talked about the systems, and systems are what fuel habits. And so we've got to build in the systems and the habits that are about connection. And so if you are out of the habit of doing this work, the app will remind you to do that. In the morning, it pops up and says, have you done your morning exercise? Have you done the morning training if it's in a training period? And in the evening, let's review how the day went. So we get a feedback as opposed to a book. I mean, I could have written a book on Unpause and it would just sit there.
Yes.
Waiting for you to decide to pick it up. The app will remind you, because it's in your pocket going, hey, did you do that? You can ignore it. But if you're committed to unpausing, you would attend to it, right? And so the Unpause app is designed just for that. So that it includes a daily morning and a daily evening exercise that keeps you thinking through how you want to be and who you want to be and how you want to designate your day. Has trainings to help you understand what that would look like, some assessments to help you understand where you are currently. And then it has some coaching involved in it so that you can say, well, what about this situation? And it gives you some feedback on that too. So the core of that is transformation in the relationship by changing the systems and getting you to unpause that pause button marriage.
Yeah, and I think this is so phenomenal. And it's so interesting when you said that about a book. I was at a workshop the other day, and a person was explaining kind of the benefits of an app over a book. And the way she explained it was a book is shelf development, an app is self-development. I thought that was kind of a cool way to think of it. But this sounds like something that would be so valuable. It's almost like a little coach in your pocket, that especially if you keep the notifications on and you spend a few minutes of your day doing this, especially in the early part of that, where you're starting to feel you're not spending any energy on the relationship. You're just spending all your energy on doing life. That's what I'm hearing is really when it's.
Yes. So let me just, you said it's like having a little coach in your pocket. It's a little more than just like that. It is that because we actually trained an AI piece on my knowledge base. And so instead of it going and pulling from a lot of stuff out there, it's my Right. It's me.
Yeah.
We trained it on my trainings, my podcasts, my books, and then I went in and tried to fool it. And I'm like, that sounds a lot like me. So
that's good. Yeah.
It's built in there as a way of getting some immediate response when, it could be 2 a.m. You're like, well, what do I do about this?
Right.
It'll give it to you. There's a way of asking a question, getting a response that is based on my approach.
Right. Yeah. So very much like having almost you in their pocket to be able to just do that. Lee, is that available for both Apple and Android? Or
it is.
Okay, wonderful.
We started with Apple just to see how we were doing, and now it's moved into Android also.
Great. So look for that wherever you get your apps, if this is something that you're focused on.
Let's give a shortcut because it actually is embedded in a systems app. And so the way to find it is to go to unpauseyourmarriage.com. Unpause your marriage, because that's what we're doing. We're unpausing that pause button, man. Unpauseyourmarriage.com will put you on the page where you can then grab the app and have it ready to go for that.
Even better. Thank you so much. So Lee, what's one piece of advice? Because we're almost at the end of our time here. What's one piece of advice you would give people who are going through divorce or not people going through divorce, because we're not at divorce yet, people who are starting to feel that disconnect? Like what do you think would be one takeaway you want people to remember from this conversation?
A little shortcut, just kind of a mindset is to think team. And because team brings it in back to that, how do you play well as a team? You communicate together, right? You work together. And so if we're talking about those parallel lives, just to have the mindset, we're on the same team. Now we need to start playing like a team, changes how we go about things. And that is a fundamental foundational shift that needs to be there. You're operating many times kind of as a team, but as a team who's playing offense over here and defense over here, instead of going, how do we play together as a team? So the mindset of being a team and working together will get you past a lot of this.
Great. And just one more time, where can people go to get the app?
Unpauseyourmarriage.com.
Right. And is that the best place to reach you as well, Lee, if people want to find out more about what you do?
You can find me there or at savethemarriage.com also.
Perfect. I will make sure that gets in the show notes. Lee, thank you so much for this. And I love that you have created this app because I just see a huge potential for people. So thank you for all you do.
Thanks for having me back.
And thank you, everybody, for listening in to this episode of The D Shift. And don't forget to tune in again next episode. Thanks for listening and supporting the D Shift podcast. If you would like to attend live trainings by our amazing guests and have a chance to ask questions and get answers from our experts, join the D Shift crew. For more details and to sign up, head on over to www.divorcecoachforwomen and click on the podcast page.